Hello and welcome. I am Scrapperlock, and this is City of Heroes. We are with our level 27 character, Liberty Lass, who needs about 127,000 XP to go to get to a level 28. And I've done a little bit of work on the base, so I thought I'd show you. It's not done. It's not perfect, but it's still a work in progress. But what we got here is the medical bay. So what I've done, I guess the most work on here is the surgery room. What I wanted to do is make this feel a little more intimate and not just wide open, because obviously with surgery you'd need to kind of close it off. So I used some walls here, and we got a lot of lighting, and we got an auto dock, and um, we've got surgical arms and lights up there, and some medical supplies. Then we have this sort of a triage area here where we've got some monitors, and basically the idea is this is where you get evaluated, and if you need an operation, you come in here and the auto doc will operate on you, because Liberty Lass certainly doesn't have a medical license. This is eventually going to be where the patients will kind of be if they need to be here more long term, but I'm only just starting that. And the functional part of it is over here. You have the inspiration table where we can store inspirations. I just threw one in there so you can see what it looks like and you can pull them out. And then these are the base reclamators. These are the devices that should allow us to res if we die back at the base. Anyway, that's all I've done. I haven't done any more than that. So let's see. Let's go ahead and call our contact, Christine, and get to the next step on General Z, which is to capture Armand and his guards. And we need to go to Steel Canyon. So, oops, that's the hazard zones. That's why I purposely colored it that way, so that I could visually see if I've gone the wrong direction. Get a little closer here. Why am I not? There we go. And we will just go on in, teleport to Steel Canyon. So yeah, I've been playing a bit with the base, and it's definitely a rabbit hole that you can fall down into. There are so many better ones. Please don't use mine as an example of what you can do in a base, because I'm super basic with it. I want it to look kind of cool, but I also want it to be functional. Around the other side of the med bay is going to be the quote-unquote science lab. That's just going to mostly be decorative. I might put some workshop stuff in there temporarily so that I can use it, but then I will move it when I create an actual tech workshop. So we'll just see. I might put that near the engineering lab. We'll just see what we do here. All right, now we should perform better because we now have plus 3 SOs on all of our powers, so we should hit a little bit better. Of course, I missed just when I said that. And there's a Raider engineer there, and I didn't even see him because I'm sloppy. I do want to actually we looked at the enhancements last time, but what we were more looking at was just SOs versus inventions. But I do want to talk about how I slotted. I double accuracy'd Bone Smasher and Whirling Hands, and the main reason for that is that we are at +1, and it's going to be harder to hit. And if you've noticed, can't see it here, I don't remember what we used last, but if you take a look at them, so let's just take a look at our 2-hit as we come upon some enemies here. Now, first you got to find enemies. We're going to take a look at our 2-hit so you can see the difference. Alright, so here's a Raider Engineer, and let's just take a look. We have no accuracy on Total Focus, single accuracy on Barrage and Energy Punch, and double accuracy on Bone Smasher and Whirling Hands. Right, so let's run up and taunt him. Let's see if there's another one there. Alright, so no accuracy on Bone Smasher. Against a +1, we have a 78% chance to hit. Single accuracy on Barrage. We have an 89% chance to hit. Oh, wait. Do we have build-up going? Okay, so we have 89%. And then double accuracy on Whirling Hands. 95%. Right, so that's against +1s. Okay. So against +1s, we should have no problem. It's really the +2s that make it hard to hit. So we'll see when we get to the +2s, we'll do that again, but you can definitely take a look with no bonus, right? 78%. Not sure why it's 78. Shouldn't it be below 75? They're +1 to me. Unless that's got a higher base to hit. Because they didn't have buildup running, right? Hang on. Let's look at this. Total focus. Ah, it's a 1.2 accuracy, so we can't really use that. That's a shame. If I had thought about it, I would have actually bought enhancements and not slotted them in, and we could actually take a look at the percentages. So it's 78% only because it's a 1.2 accuracy. Is anybody in here? It's bright light in here early morning, so I'm going to have a little bit of trouble in the dark room. Did I miss an engineer? No. Okay. Just want to check those guys. So you could see the difference at least from the dual accuracy and the single accuracy one. You go from an 89% to hit to a 95% to hit. Obviously not when the buildup is running. And you can see that we're taking guys out a lot faster because we do a little more damage just because I've added another damage on my this big power here, Bone Smasher, but also because we now have the +3 SOs. What is nice that total focus is 1.2 accuracy to start with, because that's almost like you're starting with a DO accuracy on it. And so we'll only need 1 accuracy on it, and that's good because we're going to need recharges on it. And ultimately, we're going to probably want to double recharge that one. Single accuracy, probably no endurance on it. Does it use a lot of endurance? Let's take a look. It uses 18 endurance compared to something like this that uses 8. We probably need endurance on it. Base recharge is 20. Two recharges should be enough on this. Single endurance, single accuracy, and maybe a couple damage. We're not going to be using total focus for damage. We're going to be using total focus to charge up our powers. Why are there only 2 of you guys? These are all Inferno Raiders? Come on over here. So I do want to chit-chat a little bit about whether I use the mouse to click versus key binding and whether it's faster. Someone pointed out that if you're trying to heal, right, and you need to use the mouse, so you're going to be over in the team window. I can't really show it because I'm not in a group. You're going to be on in the team window, and you got to click through your targets here to target the people you want to heal. If you're going click, 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 heal, click, 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 heal, it could be an issue. And that is actually true. And I think, I haven't gone back to rewatch this, but I'm pretty sure if you guys go and watch, Nightmare Lass is basically doing that. She's a mastermind, so she has her own group, and her pets appear in the group window. And if you see, I think I did, in fact, either bind the heal button, the heal other button to something else, or I started just hitting the 1 constantly. But with her, all I was doing was ordering the pets to do stuff with the mouse, and then targeting the pets with the mouse, right? And then I was letting the pets do all the work. I don't know how I would do it if I were actually playing a healing character. Come on up. Where I had to actually, like a defender, where I had to do some attacks and some heals, I would probably have a very hard time with that. Because I never have been a keyboard user for using a hotbar. I always click. And some of that is because I guess I'm visual with what I do, and I have to actually see the buttons up here. if you replaced all of these buttons with a straight orange thing that had no symbols on it, no names, right? Even with the names, I don't know. If I couldn't see these symbols, I wouldn't know what I was clicking. I wouldn't be able to tell you which one was the AoE. I don't memorize it by position. I memorize it by the look of the icon. It's why I like the City of Heroes hot button icons, because they're very nice and clean and easy to see and simple. Whereas something like, say, Star Wars: The Old Republic, where it was a little square comic book panel and it had a picture of like a Jedi Knight frowning with a lightsaber in it, and it's really tiny. And then there's another one of a Jedi Knight master smiling with a lightsaber in it, and you gotta like lean way in and use a magnifying glass to see the difference between the icons. I had a lot of trouble with that because, again, I don't memorize it by the position. I memorize it by what the icon looks like. It's why I like City of Heroes so much. That's like a me thing. I'm sure other people would learn it by position and don't care what it looks like. But because of that, that's why I have a lot of trouble with keybinds, because even if I were pressing the buttons, I would have to look down here to see what 3 is, right? And then, I don't know, it's never become second nature to me to just use the hot buttons. That's true in any game, not just COH. The reason I like COH is twofold. One, you can queue something up while another thing is animating, so that helps me. And also that the buttons are nice and clean and clear and very obvious what it is that you've got in there. And the same for every character, so the big circle is always a big attack. This little flashy thing, whatever you want to call it, jaggedy thing, is always like an AoE with the circle around it. This thing is always some kind of a mez or a hold. This is always like a double punch or a triple punch. This is a medium punch. Like, it's very, very consistent. And that allows me to know what I'm doing and what I'm clicking on. And that's just something I need. And that's just how I play it. And that's probably not just the playstyle, but maybe that's why I've gravitated so much more towards the melee characters, because you can play them that way. You don't have to click on anything with the mouse over here. I almost never individual target anything in the middle of a fight. I just tab target or control tab. Come on, are you gonna wake up? So I'm waiting for him to kneel down so that I can knock him out of it with the taunt. The Raider engineers are pretty stupid, and what they generally do is, if they start to kneel down and you knock them out of it, it never occurs to them to try again, you know, to try to initiate it again. All right, so let's take a look. He's going to be too hard to do. I wanted to take a look at the 2-hit with him, but it's going to be too hard chasing him around. I can't watch the 2-hit while I'm chasing him. All right, so this guy's orange. This is an Inferno Raider. So let's take a look. Single origin enhancement, one of them. 77% chance to hit, 2 of them. That's also 77? That's not possible. Hang on, what's going on here? So we have 2 with Whirling Hands. 95. We have 2 with this one, right? 95, okay. 2 with this one, 77. Well, 1 with this one, and 1 with that one. Right, so you can see the difference that this second single origin enhancer is making on accuracy. I feel like it shouldn't have been 95, though. Alright, let's try again. Alright, so there's with a single origin. Let's do Brawl is unenhanced. So our base hit's 56 against him, right? Because of the 2-level difference. But we put 2 single origin enhancers on it. We're at 95, which is capped. That's the highest you can be. And 1 single origin enhancer. We're at 77. So I always remember the debate. Should you put a second accuracy? And people are like, oh, it's not worth it. Of course it's worth it. Against +2s, you just went from 56 to 95% with having 2. And from 77 compared to 1. And you see how much I miss when it's a 77% or 72% to hit? Of course you want to put doubles. So if you want to go after +2 enemies and above, you definitely want another accuracy enhancer on there. At least that's always how I've done it. Now, the way I'm doing it, because we're at +1s, we're only... So here's my logic. We only fight +2s about half the time. So I don't need 2 of these on everything, plus these aren't fully slotted yet. So my logic is if I'm fighting +2s half the time and +1s half the time, I want half my powers to be geared toward fighting +2s and half toward fighting +1s. It's not that I'm only going to use these 2 against +2s and these 2 against +1s, but it means my average to hit, if you average out a couple of 95s and a couple of 77s, is going to be in the mid-80s, which is fine. Right? I'll miss a little bit more often with these 2, hit a little bit more often with these 2, and it'll all even out. Now, realistically, what I want is this one to have 2 also, because that's the follow-up to this. But by the time we do that, we're going to have the other powers that follow up to this, and I don't know how I'm going to feel about those. So we'll just have to see. Again, I don't build ahead of time. I play it by ear. I see how the character's performing. Why did I put 2 single origin accuracy enhancers in those 2 powers? Was it because I calculated the numbers? Nope. It's because I felt like, gee, I'm missing a little bit too much against those +2s. Let me do another one and see how it goes. Right? Get back here. You guys are such cowards. I mean, actually, they're smart, right? Run away from Liberty Lass. She's going to capture you. Raider Engineer. Hello, let's taunt you. The biggest pain in the neck is when there are 2 of them. Right? And you taunt one, or you knock one out of it, and there's another one off to the side that you didn't see who's already kneeling down. And the worst is when you don't see either one of them, you taunt somebody else or attack somebody else, and both of them kneel down, and now you've got 2 of the force field generators to deal with. Now, it's not the worst thing in the world, obviously, if a force field generator comes out, but guys, I kind of make it a mini game. Can I get through this whole mission without any of those force field generators coming out, right? I try to see, can I just prevent it? Sort of like with Dr. Lila. Can I keep her alive, right? Oh, will you cut it out? Here, let's see if we can stun you. Stop dancing around. Floats like a butterfly, stings like a bee. Is that what you're trying to do? Didn't work. And there should be a jump bot? Or no, that's Armand. Oh, shoot. Too late. Oh, no, I did get him. Just barely. So against +1s, let's brawl. 65% to hit, right? Then with our single origin enhancer, 1 single origin enhancer, 89%, and then of course 95% with 2. There was a lot of speculation when City of Heroes first came out on exactly how to enhance things and what these percentages were, because these that percentage thing, that was something they put in the game years after it launched. Initially, Statesman was very opposed. I think I've told this before. He was very opposed to exposing the actual numbers to the players. We knew that, and originally I don't think originally they told us, if I'm not mistaken, I don't think originally that they told us, I just want to look at that. I don't think originally they told us how much trainers, dual origins, and single origins were worth in percentage to the powers, as well as what the powers actually do. Or that it was not visible in the game, right? This, you see this here where it says show detailed info. This did not exist when the game launched. You could hover over it, and I think it said allowed enhancements. It didn't have set categories. It might not have had any of that. It might have just said barrage, melee damage, blah, blah, blah. I don't know if it said allowed enhancements. It certainly didn't have the buff debuff value. It didn't have any of that when you hovered over it. So it was just the first two blocks of text, barrage, melee damage, blah, 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 and then allowed enhancements. I know for sure the stuff underneath wasn't there because there were no sets, and they didn't expose the numbers. And when you hovered over these, it didn't have the percent initially either. It just said by a great amount for single origins, by a medium amount for dual origins, and by a small amount for trainers. Right? This is, if you remember right, I said way back when in beta people were using trainers at level 35 because they didn't know. They didn't know where to find the stores. They thought they only could get stuff from drops, and I don't even know how many drops they did back then. I really don't know the way the drops worked. But B, they didn't know the difference between trainer single and dual origin enhancers, right? I wish I still had the rulebook. I could pull it out, the actual physical manual. I could pull it out and read it to you guys so you could see what it said. But even that was clearer than beta. In beta, in the closed beta, before I got in there, because when I got in there, they actually had some of the numbers. Players had figured out. I did that too early. But originally what they said was that enhancements improve your power. They didn't tell the amounts. They said dual origins are better than trainers, and single origins are better than dual origins. Eventually, they admitted that essentially it's a factor of 2, so that dual origins are twice as good as single origins, and twice as good as trainers, and single origins are twice as good as dual origins. But they didn't say what the amount of the twice as good was, right? It could be 1%, 2%, 3%, instead of what it really was, which was about 10%, 20%, 30%, roughly. And so, yeah, they were very coy about how it worked, and they didn't. Statesman in particular was very opposed to exposing the actual numbers, right? Because he feared the whole min-maxing thing that actually happened. But what occurred in beta is you did have these damage numbers floating up there, right? I don't know if it actually said it in the chat. Like, it didn't say your hits and misses. The 2-hit was not put in there. That came in later. I think it said how much damage you took. But if not, the floating numbers were definitely up above the head as an option. And so what happened is people were actually sitting there writing down all the damage that they were taking and doing, right? They were keeping track of it. And then they were calculating how much must this enhancement do, right? So they were doing stuff like I was doing, right? I'm going to brawl with no enhancers on it and see how often I hit, and just sit there and brawl 100 times and count how many times they hit, right? And then they said, okay, now I'm going to put a training damage enhancer on it and brawl 100 times, or try accuracy enhancer and brawl 100 times and see how often I hit. And then I'm going to put a dual origin and see how often I hit. And then I'm going to put a single origin and see how often I hit. And by doing that, they were able to figure out that the single origins were about 33% accuracy buff, 33% damage buff, and so on and so forth. So that was, once the players figured it out, I remember on the beta forum that, I don't know if it was in the beta forum or when it first launched, but early on there was somebody who posted all of the enhancements and what their percents are, because some of them, like I said, do 33% as a single origin, some of them do 20%. And I think there might be a third category where they do a different amount. I'm not sure, like the duration. I'm not sure. But they had different, like which ones do 33% on single origin, which ones do 20, and then that affects how they do dual origin. And he had a whole chart and a list of where the shops were and everything. This is not something Paragon Encrypted Studios released. This is what the players figured out as they were playing, and then they collected it into, like, you know, a cooperative database so that everybody could find it, right? And you would go onto the forums and say, where the heck are the shops, right? The shops were not shown on the map. The city map, where like the town map where it has they were not shown, right? You had to find them. Right? This was all meant to be exploration. You have to explore the city to find things. And the and so what happened is, I think eventually they realized, well, the players know this stuff, right? It's posted on the forum, it's posted on wikis and places like that. We may as well go ahead and give them the actual numbers. And another reason they gave the actual numbers is because players were arguing about things like the 2-hit, right? They were complaining that 2-hit was bugged, right? And so in order to prove that it wasn't, they started putting the 2-hit rolls up and showing the stats in there. People were complaining, why am I getting mezzed? I should have this much mez defense. But you were doing a calculation, the numbers weren't exposed to you, right? These numbers weren't there. So to know, people would get a calculator out and figure out what their resistance was and say it's about 32%. But that's what they thought it probably was, but maybe they're wrong. Maybe the game is doing something, people were arguing the game is not doing what it's supposed to do, and that things are bugged. And so to prove that it wasn't, they started slowly exposing all these numbers to people. But that took a while, and it did not happen quickly at all. And my recollection is that what really got things exposed was the change when Cryptic Studios was split off from Paragon so that they could work on the Marvel game that then became Champions Online after Marvel pulled their license. Statesman left to do that, to run that. And with him gone, a different developer, Positron, Matt Miller, became the lead developer. And Positron was not as opposed to exposing the numbers to the players. That's why I think ultimately these got exposed. Also, Castle, I don't think he was a dev at launch, but he came on a little later. And I think Castle was also very much in favor of exposing the numbers to the players. And he posted a lot of numbers on the forums and how it works. But he's actually the one who did the incorrect statistical test, when I was complaining about misstreaks. He tried to test it, but he didn't understand what I was saying. And I've explained this in an earlier video, but I can explain it here. Because many people watching these haven't watched the older videos. So what happened is, a lot of people were complaining about misstreaks. It's why you can see your hit chance now, because they were trying to prove to you what the hit chances are. And one argument was the probability to hit is not as high as you guys say it is, because I keep missing. It can't be 80% or whatever, because I miss way more than 20% of the time, is the argument. And so Castle said, no, we've done the stats. The percentages are right. And what I said to him was, yes, the percentages may be right, but your engine is streaky. And I've talked about this before. I believe that the 2-hit rolls, the actual roll number you're getting, like right here where I do this and it rolls a 75 or whatever to hit, or a 28 or whatever, and for whatever reason they gave it decimal places. I don't know why they didn't just have it roll from 1 to 100 as integers. But you see how we missed a couple times in a row, even though we had like a 2/3 chance to hit. There's a certain probability that's going to happen, right? With a certain chance. It's going to happen occasionally. But what I argued is that those rolls, the 2-hit roll, right? Not the 2-hit chance, right? But the actual roll that the engine is giving you, the quote-unquote roll, the random number being generated here, right? The last random number was generated with a 67%, was an 18.4. And so that roll, that number, I argued, and I don't know if I used this word back then, but what I argue is that number is autocorrelated. And in statistics, what autocorrelation means is that a number of one value is more likely to beget a following number in the random generation of a similar value, or in any data set. So for example, temperature. On a given day, the temperature of today is autocorrelated with the temperature of tomorrow. Although it isn't the case that It's going to be exactly the same. It's much more likely if yesterday was in the 70s that today's going to be around the 70s than it is that today's going to be in the 40s or the 90s. It's just the way temperature works because there's heat stored in the atmosphere, and because that heat doesn't dissipate automatically overnight because of cloud cover and atmosphere humidity holding temperature in, right? There's a relationship. It is not the case that if you take a number from 1 to 100 as the temperature, that if today was 75, it's just as likely you're going to get a 1, a 75, or a 100 tomorrow. No, it's much more likely that tomorrow's temperature is going to be close to 75. It might not be exact, but it's going to be a lot closer to 75 than it is to either 100 or to 1. They're not equally likely, right? The temperature today is not completely disconnected from the temperature yesterday, nor is the temperature tomorrow completely disconnected from the temperature today, right? So the temperature to yesterday is information you can use to predict today's temperature, and that's partly how they do forecasts. Because the temperature is autocorrelated, it makes it easier to do the forecast. Right? Now, that doesn't mean you can't have a 50s today and a blizzard tomorrow. Certainly you can, and we've seen it happen, in real life, but it's much more likely 50s today is going to be 50s tomorrow. And so that's autocorrelation. And so what I argue, and I'm convinced this is true, but it's very hard to prove autocorrelation without the proper statistical test, and Castle did not do the proper statistical test, and that not that that it's not 75% chance to hit, but that the numbers are streaky. They are auto-correlated. You tend to get 2 misses. When you get 1 miss, you're more likely to get a second miss in a row. When you get a hit, you're more likely to get a second hit. And I think that's because it tends to generate, for some reason, numbers close. You see this? 98, 93. Those are close, right? It tends to generate numbers that are close to the numbers it generated the last time. Not guaranteed, right? The next one was a 24. Just like tomorrow could be 10 when it was 60 today, it's just much less likely, right? And so what I argued was that these numbers are correlated. And what Castle did for his test was he set up a minion against a superhero, and he gave the minion enough hit points that the superhero couldn't knock the minion out. And then he put the superhero on auto for brawl, right? So he did this, auto brawl. And he just had his character sit there and auto brawl the enemy every time brawl recharged, like this, right? And he just had the character do that 10,000 times, and he logged the results. And unenhanced against a zero con minion, it was 75%. He hit 7,490 times or something. And he said, yeah, that's good. It's 75%. And I said, I'm not arguing that the 2-hit roll doesn't work out to be 75%, Castle. What I'm arguing is that the number is auto-correlated, and I was not able to stop this guy. Because there were 2 of them, and I just didn't target him fast enough. And you can't prove autocorrelation with numbers like that, right? Because I could get, and I tried to explain to him, I could get 7,500 hits in a row that are hits. And 7,500 hits in a row, and 2,500 misses in a row. These guys are kicking my butt. And jeez, do they ever miss? I got 3 Lux running here. These guys should be practically floored. That is ridiculous that I had to use that many Lux against 6 orange cons. I tried to explain to him, if I get 7,500 hits in a row and 2,500 misses in a row, that's still 75% to hit, but you would not expect 75 straight hits and 25 straight misses out of 100 if you have a 75% chance to hit. You'd expect a sequence like hit, 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 miss, miss, hit, 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 miss, hit, 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 miss, like that. And I'm not, and you can't say whether you did that or not with your test. He never understood what I was talking about. He kept insisting, It's 75%. And a couple other people who understood statistics in the forums were saying, yes, Scrapperlock's right. You know, this is an issue. One guy tried to explain it more clearly than I had. Didn't work. They were never able to either understand or admit that they had an autocorrelation problem in their random number generator. I still don't know why it happens. And I don't know, like, it's hard to document whether it's happening to enemies, because I don't know how they're generating the numbers, right? Whether each enemy that's an object has their basically own little mini RNG, random number generator, on them, or what. It's very hard to tell. But I'm convinced that there is autocorrelation, because too many times you hit like 20 times in a row and then you get double misses, right? Almost every time I see a miss, I cringe and go, here comes another miss. And almost every time it does happen. You get 2 in a row. And although when you're at 50-50, there should be times when you do, it shouldn't be as much as it is. And so, yeah, I always was convinced that, you know, and that's why by the way, they put the streak breaker in. Right? Because people were getting annoyed at what they were calling the miss streaks, and they insisted that it's just all in your head, right? But it happened enough to annoy people enough that they put a streak breaker in. Oh, I missed another Raider Engineer. So I was sloppy this mission. So one of the problems you have with this is these guys, not only do they make it impossible to hit anybody else, but they distract you from actually fighting the guys who are doing damage, because they don't do any damage to you. So yeah, I mean, the streak breaker was them putting this in, going, okay, we're not going to admit that we have a problem with our random number generator. We think it's all an illusion because we're doing the castle test, which is incorrect, but convince them that everything was okay. But because you guys keep complaining about streaks, we'll put in a streak breaker to artificially, if you miss more than a certain number of times in a row, it'll just throw in an auto hit. Right? And so what happens is if it rolls up another miss, and it's too many in a row, and too many is defined by your chance to hit, then it will automatically hit for you. And the villains do not get a streak breaker. So too many is defined as, I don't know. I think with a 95% to hit, if you miss more than twice in a row, it will break the streak. Then if it's 75%, if you miss more than like 3 times in a row or something, 50%. I don't know where it stops. You know, like, oh, I did that too early. Yep. So I'm not really sure. You can see this force field generator takes my 95% down to 72%. So it's like a minus 20, at least a minus 24% debuff. And it was taking the 89 down to what, 56? Man. So it must be a percent debuff rather than a straight number. Well, the other thing to realize too is the 95% is the cap, but it stores numbers higher than that. So when we're doing the double accuracy enhanced, we might have over a 95% to hit. It just caps it there. So it might be the case that we have like 102, and then if it subtracts 30, it gets you down to 72. You know what I mean? You're gonna take a knee there, you. See, there we go, 2 in a row. Right, you can almost bet money on it. If you I think I actually said this to them once. If you played a drinking game and you took a drink every time you got like 3 misses in a row, you would get insanely drunk in this game. I think I said twice in a row, and somebody was like, dude, if you tried to do twice in a row, you'd be in the hospital. You would just absolutely destroy your liver in a single mission. And I said, all right, 3 times in a row. And then people were like, yeah, you'd get drunk. And we found an orange recipe. Might be a good one now. Let's see what level it is. We have one that's level 13. I don't know why. But let's take a look. We have a level 28 one. And this is melee damage. Pounding Slugfest. So here's the issue why I wouldn't use this one. Because there are only 4 of them, right? You can have sets of up to 6. There are only 4 of them. Now it does improve regeneration, which is nice, and improves our defense here. But yeah, I try to only use sets that have 6. Okay, so we don't need these inspirations, but instead of spending them, let's have a little fun. First, let's call our contact. And there's a clue. But let's go to the base. Now, instead of getting rid of them, if it's convenient, I'm not going to do this in the middle of a mission, but since we're about to wrap up, let's head to the base. And let's go to our hospital here. And we can go right here. And we can just store extras. So here's the reason why a lot of supergroups put inspiration tables, usually full of all kinds of cool stuff, right next to the res. The logic is you just died, you res, you're probably empty on inspirations, or at least the ones you need. You just come over here, grab whatever you need to help you in the mission, and then you go straight back to the mission, and you don't have to go find somebody to purchase inspirations from. And so what you do is you just, when you come into the base, if you have some extras, you just donate them to try and just be charitable to the rest of the group. Now we don't have a super group here, but if I res with an empty tray, I now have some inspirations I can grab. And eventually, I'll probably fill the tray up with lucks, sturdies, and accuracies in particular, because those are usually the ones that I need. Usually the reason I died is because I couldn't hit, or I was getting pounded, right? I'm usually not dying because I ran out of endurance, or not doing enough damage, or mezzed. Although a lot of supergroups also put a bunch of break frees, the big break frees that last longer, into the inspiration holder, so that if you died because you were being mezzed, you can fill up on break frees and then go back and avoid the mezz. Anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed. That's enough for now. Until next time, I am Scrapperlock, and this has been City of Heroes.